Most people have no idea how much strength lies in silence. In fact, they fear it. They fear being alone with their thoughts, away from distractions, away from the noise that fills up every moment of their day. And yet, silence is where real strength is built. Not the kind of strength that comes from external validation, but something much deeper, something unshakable. See, when you strip away the noise, you're left with yourself, just you, your thoughts, your fears, your insecurities, your ambitions, all of it raw and unfiltered. And that's uncomfortable, isn't it? That's why most people will do anything to avoid it. They'll drown themselves in constant entertainment, meaningless conversations, and mindless scrolling just to avoid facing what's really going on inside. But the truth is, the very thing they're running from is what would set them free. Because once you stop filling every moment with external noise, something incredible happens. You start hearing the voice that actually matters, your own. There's a reason why the most powerful people in history, the greatest thinkers, the most disciplined warriors, all understood the value of silence. They knew that clarity doesn't come from reacting to everything around you. It comes from sitting still, observing, and letting things settle. The mind, when given the space, starts organizing itself. You begin to understand things that seemed confusing before. Problems that once felt overwhelming suddenly shrink down to size. You start noticing patterns, seeing through people, recognizing truths you were blind to before. And that kind of awareness, that's a superpower. But here's what's even more fascinating. When you embrace silence, you don't just strengthen your mind, you strengthen your presence. You ever notice how the people who talk the most usually have the least power? It's because they're constantly seeking attention, constantly trying to prove something, constantly afraid of being overlooked. But those who are truly powerful, those who command respect without even trying, they don't need to say much at all. Their silence speaks for them. Their energy does the talking. And people feel it. When you walk into a room and you don't rush to fill the space with words, something shifts. People notice. They wonder what's on your mind. They sense a level of control, a depth that they can't quite put their finger on. And that's because, deep down, human beings respect restraint. They respect the person who doesn't react to every little thing, who isn't constantly seeking approval, who doesn't need to be loud to be noticed. But this isn't just about how others perceive you. It's about what silence does for you internally. It teaches you discipline. It forces you to become comfortable with your own company, to master your emotions instead of being controlled by them. It's easy to lash out when you're upset. It's easy to talk just to fill the space. What's hard, what requires true strength, is holding back, observing, thinking before you speak, resisting the urge to always have the last word. That's power. And when you develop that level of control over yourself, something incredible starts to happen. You stop chasing, you stop feeling the need to constantly prove yourself, you stop reacting to every little thing that used to trigger you, and that's when life begins to unfold differently. You start attracting instead of chasing. Opportunities come to you, the right people gravitate towards you, not because you're loud, not because you demand attention, but because your presence commands it. So, if you want real strength, learn to be comfortable in silence. Learn to sit with yourself. Learn to resist the urge to always speak, always react, always explain yourself. Because the moment you stop running from silence, the moment you embrace it, that's the moment you realize you never needed all the noise in the first place. Everything you were looking for was already within you, just waiting for you to listen. There's something deeply unsettling about waiting, about not knowing exactly when or how something will happen. People get restless. They want results now. They want success now. They want the recognition, the rewards, the respect but they don't want to endure the discomfort of patience. And so they force things, they chase, they push too hard, too soon, and in doing so, they actually repel the very things. Patience isn't just about waiting, it's about trusting. It's about understanding that everything in life has a natural rhythm and no amount of force will speed up something that isn't ready to happen yet. Think about a tree. You don't yank on its branches demanding it to grow faster. You don't dig up its roots to check if it's making progress. You water it, you nurture it, and you let time do the rest. But people don't treat themselves that way. They want to skip the process. They want the fruit without tending to the soil. And that's where they go wrong. The right opportunities come when you're ready for them. Not when you think you're ready, when you're actually ready. There's a massive difference. A lot of people believe they deserve something just because they want it badly enough. But desire alone isn't enough. You have to be prepared for what you're asking for. Because if you're not, even if you do manage to force it into your life, you won't be able to hold on to it. It will slip through your fingers just as quickly as it arrived. Look at relationships, for example. People rush into them, desperate for connection, unwilling to wait for the right person. And what happens? Chaos. They attach themselves to the wrong people. They try to mold incompatible situations into something they were never meant to be. And instead of finding fulfillment, they find frustration. But the person who understands patience, they don't chase, they don't settle, they work on themselves. They focus on becoming someone worth being with rather than anxiously seeking someone to fill a void. And because of that, the right person naturally enters their life when the time is right. The same applies to success. The people who try to force success through shortcuts, through desperation, end up paying for it later. They cut corners, they compromise their integrity, they burn themselves out trying to speed up a process that can't be rushed. But the ones who truly make it, the ones who build something lasting, they understand that real success is earned, not grabbed. They lay the foundation, they put in the work, they develop the skills, and then, when the opportunity finally presents itself, they're ready. Patience is power, because when you're patient, you're in control. You're not frantically grasping at whatever scraps life throws your way. You're not making impulsive decisions out of fear or frustration. You're steady. You're deliberate. And because of that, the things that are meant for you find their way to you. Not through force, but through alignment. But here's the hard part. Patience requires faith. And faith is difficult. It's difficult to believe that things will work out when you don't see immediate results. It's difficult to trust that the right opportunities will come when you feel stuck in place. It's difficult to hold back when everything in you is screaming to take action. But patience isn't passive. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things and trusting that the outcome will take care of itself. If you plant the right seeds, if you put in the work, if you focus on building yourself rather than frantically chasing what you think you need, life has a way of rewarding you. The doors that once seemed locked begin to open. The opportunities you were once chasing start chasing you. Not because you forced them. So slow down, stop grasping, stop forcing. The things that are truly meant for you will arrive exactly when they're supposed to. And when they do, you'll be ready to receive them. Most people move through life without really seeing anything. They're so caught up in their own noise, talking, reacting, interrupting, that they miss what's right in front of them. They don't notice the subtle shifts in body language, the hidden intentions behind words, the patterns that reveal who a person really is. They're too busy speaking to listen, too busy assuming to observe. And that's a weakness, a blind spot that costs them more than they realize. Silence sharpens your mind. When you stop filling the air with constant chatter, something remarkable happens. You start to notice things. You see what others overlook. You pick up on the hesitation in someone's voice, the flicker of doubt in their expression, the slight inconsistency in their words, you begin to understand people, not just what they say, but what they actually mean. Because most of what people communicate isn't in their words, it's in the pauses between them. It's in what they don't say. And when you cultivate the discipline to remain silent, to truly listen, the world starts revealing itself to you in ways you never imagined. Think about the people who command the most respect. They aren't the ones who talk endlessly trying to prove how much they know. They're the ones who listen carefully, who analyze before they respond, who understand the weight of words and use them deliberately. Their silence isn't weakness, it's presence, it's control. And that's precisely why they're taken seriously. But silence doesn't just help you understand people, it helps you understand reality itself. The more you listen, the more you observe, the more patterns you start to see. You notice how people behave under pressure. You see the way opportunities emerge and disappear. You recognize the cause and effect relationships that dictate everything around you. And once you see those patterns, you're no longer blindly reacting to life. You're anticipating. You're prepared. You know when to act and when to hold back. Most people operate on impulse. They hear something that offends them and they react. They feel slighted and they lash out. They make decisions based on their immediate emotions rather than on a full understanding of the situation. But when you embrace silence, you give yourself a critical advantage: time. Time to process, time to think, time to separate emotion from logic, so that when you do respond, it's with precision, not recklessness. That kind of control is rare. It's why people with true presence don't need to raise their voices to be heard. They don't need to over-explain themselves. They speak only when necessary, and when they do, people listen, not because they're loud, but because they've earned the weight behind their words. But make no mistake, cultivating this ability requires effort. It means resisting the urge to always have the last word. It means swallowing your pride when you feel the impulse to correct or argue. It means training yourself to pause, to observe, to let silence do its work before you step in. And it's not easy. It's uncomfortable at first. But over time, you realize just how much power there is in restraint. The more you master this, the more life starts working in your favor. You avoid unnecessary conflicts because you see them coming before they even begin. You make better decisions because you're no longer rushing into them blindly. You become someone people respect, not because you demand it, but because they recognize that you see what they don't. So take a step back, say less, watch more, listen deeply, because the world reveals its secrets to those who are willing to be silent enough to hear them. People love to talk. They talk about their plans, their ambitions, their big ideas. They talk about what they're going to do, how great things will be once they finally start, how success is just around the corner. But here's the truth. Talking does nothing. Talking is easy. Talking gives the illusion of progress while keeping you exactly where you are. The people who get ahead in life aren't the ones constantly explaining their intentions. They're the ones quietly executing. They're the ones waking up before everyone else, putting in the work when no one's watching, making progress in silence while everyone else is busy talking about what they could or should be doing. Because real success doesn't come from announcing your plans, it comes from acting on them. The problem is, people confuse speaking with achieving. They think that by discussing their goals, they're somehow getting closer to them. But all they're doing is spending energy on words instead of action. It's why so many people remain stuck. They build an identity around their potential rather than their results. They talk as if they're already the person they want to become. And in doing so, they lose the drive to actually become them. And that's the danger, because the more you talk about something, the more you satisfy the part of your brain that craves progress. You trick yourself into thinking you're moving forward when in reality you're standing still. That's why you have to shift your mindset. Stop seeking validation for what you plan to do. Stop wasting energy convincing others of your potential. Instead, let your actions speak for themselves. The most successful people aren't the loudest in the room. They're the ones working in the shadows, making quiet progress every single day. They don't need to broadcast their hustle because their results make it obvious. They show up, they execute, and they let their success do the talking. It's a discipline, it's a mindset. It's the ability to sit down and do the work without needing applause, without needing constant reassurance, without needing anyone to see what you're doing. And that's difficult for most people because they crave recognition. They want people to acknowledge their efforts before they've even accomplished anything. But the truth is, if you need external validation just to stay motivated, you'll never sustain real progress. You'll burn out the moment no one is watching. Think about the greatest athletes, the most successful entrepreneurs, the most disciplined artists. They didn't get there by telling everyone what they were going to do. They got there by showing up day after day, whether they felt like it or not. They embraced the silence, the solitude, the grind that no one claps for. And that's what made them great. It's not enough to want something. Everyone wants success. Everyone wants to be great. But only a handful are willing to do what's required when the excitement fades, when motivation runs dry, when there's no immediate reward for the effort. That's the difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck. The ones who make it are the ones who are willing to work in silence, without excuses, without fanfare, without waiting for the perfect moment. So be that person. Stop talking, start doing. Let people wonder what you're up to. Let them see your progress instead of hearing about your plans. Because at the end of the day, the loudest voice in the room is never as powerful as the one who lets their results speak for them. There's something people don't quite understand about success, about relationships, about the things they want in life. They think it's all about chasing opportunities, chasing people, chasing status. But the more you chase, the more things seem to slip away. The job you desperately want doesn't come through. The person you're trying to impress pulls away. The success you're grinding for feels just out of reach. And it's frustrating. It makes you feel like you need to try harder, push more, force things into place. But that's exactly the problem. Because energy is real. And people can feel it. They can sense when you're desperate, when you're grasping, when you're coming from a place of lack instead of confidence. And nothing repels faster than neediness. The moment you try to control something that isn't meant to be forced, it resists. And so you're left exhausted, wondering why things aren't working out. But the truth is, it's not about effort. It's about alignment. Look at the people who seem to have everything fall into place for them. They don't chase, they attract. They carry themselves with an energy that naturally draws in opportunities, respect, and the right kind of people. And it's not because they're lucky, it's because they've done the internal work. They've built themselves into the kind of person who is worth noticing, worth hiring, worth being around. They don't need to convince anyone of their value because their presence already says it all. And that's the key. Your energy speaks before you do. It determines how people respond to you. It dictates what kind of opportunities come your way. It shapes the reality you live in. So if you're constantly struggling, constantly feeling like you're running in circles, maybe the answer isn't to push harder. Maybe the answer is to shift your energy. Confidence, patience, and self-respect. These things are magnetic. When you walk into a room with quiet certainty, people notice. When you stop needing validation and start focusing on becoming someone of real substance, the right people gravitate toward you. When you stop forcing outcomes and start trusting the process, doors open in ways you never expected. It's not magic. It's not some abstract philosophy. It's cause and effect. The energy you put out shapes the world around you. So stop chasing, stop forcing, build yourself, improve yourself, and watch how life starts to align in ways that feel effortless. Because the things that are meant for you will always come, not when you beg for them, but when you're truly ready to receive them. People spend so much time resisting life. They fight against uncertainty, against setbacks, against anything that doesn't fit their idea of how things should be. They grip tightly to their plans, their timelines, their expectations, believing that if they just try hard enough, they can force reality into submission. But life doesn't work that way. The more you resist, the harder things become. The more you try to control every outcome, the more anxious and exhausted you get. There's an old saying, what you resist persists, and it's true. The more you focus on what's going wrong, the more you get stuck in it. The more you obsess over what you don't have, the more you push it away. But when you trust, when you loosen your grip, when you stop trying to manipulate every little detail, you create space for things to unfold naturally, and that's when life starts working with you instead of against you. Trusting the flow of life doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It doesn't mean being passive or refusing to take responsibility. It means understanding that while you control your actions, you don't control everything else. You don't control the timing. You don't control the way people respond to you. You don't control the setbacks, the obstacles, the unexpected changes. But what you do control is how you respond. Whether you let those things break you or shape you. Whether you let them fill you with frustration or teach you patience. And that's where people go wrong. They mistake struggle for failure. They assume that if things aren't happening on their schedule, they're not happening at all. But that's not true. Every delay, every setback, every redirection, it's all part of a larger process. A process you might not fully understand yet. Sometimes the thing you desperately want isn't happening because you're not ready for it. Sometimes what feels like rejection is actually protection. Sometimes life is pushing you in a different direction, not because you're losing, but because you're meant to find something even better. But you won't see that if you're constantly resisting. You won't see it if you're too busy fighting against the flow instead of learning to move with it. There's a deep wisdom in trusting the process, in understanding that things will happen when they're meant to, not a second too early, not a second too late. And when you truly embrace that, life becomes lighter. You stop grasping. You stop forcing. You stop exhausting yourself with worry and start living. So, let go of the need to control everything. Do the work, stay consistent, but trust the timing, because life has a way of unfolding exactly as it should. And when you learn to move with it instead of against it, you'll realize you were never lost. You were always on your way. In the end, everything comes down to one simple truth. Life rewards those who are patient, observant, and disciplined enough to trust the process. The world is full of noise, full of people rushing, chasing, grasping for things they're not yet ready for. But the ones who truly succeed, the ones who find real fulfillment, are the ones who understand the power of silence. They cultivate inner strength instead of seeking constant validation. They allow patience to bring the right opportunities instead of forcing the wrong ones. They sharpen their awareness, knowing that the more they observe, the more they understand. And above all, they act. They don't waste time talking about what they're going to do. They just do it. Because when you carry the right energy, when you trust in your own path instead of trying to control everything around you, life starts to work in your favor. You stop struggling, you stop resisting, you start attracting, and suddenly things begin to align, not through force, but through readiness. So be still, be deliberate, be disciplined. Trust that everything you need will come. Not when you beg for it, not when you chase it, but when you've built yourself into someone truly prepared to receive it. Because when you master yourself, you master the world.